Hey guys, what's up? It's Alec Torelli. Welcome back to Conscious Poker YouTube. Today I am here in Jacksonville, Florida. This place is awesome. I've never been to this part of Florida. It's super beautiful out here, amazing beaches, very cool, vibrant town, growing place, awesome people. And I had the chance to play at BestBet. Very well-run poker room. It's an awesome place, and I actually got to connect with people that that ran the room at the Win many years ago, so that was super cool. Very professional run room, great staff, friendly people, so it was really fun to play at BestBet. I got to play on the live stream as well, which was super cool, and I'd like to break down for you a fun key hand I played on that live stream against one of the players in the game, and we were playing 25-50 no limit hold'em, very deep stack in this game, so it played a lot bigger, a lot of straddles, 3-betting, multi-way pots, a ton of action. And the following hand took place between me and Greg. So let's break down the hand of the day.
First hand kicks off. Greg makes it 200 in early position. I'm in the cutoff with King 10. I come in for a 3-bet to 700. No surprise, Greg calls. We go heads up to the flop. Comes down ace 10-4. He checks. And with this hand, I actually like checking behind. First of all, it's not a hand you can get 3 streets of value with, and anytime your hand can't bet multiple times, you have to check 1 street. A good place to start is the flop. Also, it's hard to get called by a lot of worse hands where I benefit from checking and getting to showdown and potentially picking off bluffs on later streets. The turn comes a 5, and Greg now fires out, which was great for me. I want him to be firing out with bluffs here so I could pick them off. He could also value bet some worse hands as well. He bets 1,000. I make the call, and we go to the river. It comes an offsuit 8, and now Greg checks. At this point, I feel like a lot of people just check behind here. They're like, oh, well, my hand has showdown value. Let me just check. But if he had an ace, you have to think about this. He would probably bet the river, because why wouldn't he bet? I check the flop. If he has an ace, he's going to bet. He wants to get value from kings, queens, jacks, a 10, or anything that I can have. So when he checks here, I feel like he either has a weak 10, or maybe he has something like a 5 or a 4 or something like that he just bet. Either way, I think my hand is good. My kicker also plays. If I had 10-9, maybe I would check here. But with a king 10, it's definitely going to be a contender for a bet. As for sizing, I go about 1/3 of the pot, which really puts him in a tough spot, and it allows him to call with a lot of weaker hands. He thinks for a while, makes the call with an 8, and I scoop myself a nice pot. If you're liking this video and these hand breakdowns so far, do me a huge favor and smash that like button. Also be sure to subscribe to this channel. Awesome new content comes out regularly. And finally, head over to consciouspoker.com or click the link in the description and hop on our newsletter. It's totally free. We have awesome content that comes out weekly about our latest hand breakdowns, poker tips, exclusive strategy, awesome poker stories, and you'll also get our hand reading system, which is the exact process I use to hand read and think through strategies just like I show you in this video. So head over there, check that out, and I'll see you on the inside. Next hand, we're running it back. Greg makes it 200 and +1. I call in the cutoff with 7s, and the player to my left makes a 3-bet to 1,200. He'd been playing a little aggressive pre, but overall pretty snug. I think he has probably something pretty good here. I don't think he's crazy getting out of line. Greg calls. Of course, I make the call with 7s. This is a great hand to play in a multi-way pot because if you hit a set, you can win a big pot, and the hand is also fairly easy to play. We have the perfect stack depth to play this hand. We go 3 ways to the flop, which comes very good. 9-4 deuce with 2 clubs. Checks over to the button, who bets 1,700. If Greg calls, I'm going to have to fold this hand. But when Greg folds, I think I have a pretty clear call. I beat all of his overcard bluffs. I also have a backdoor flush draw, and I think my hand is good enough to call half pot bet here. Turn comes down to deuce, another great card for me. At this point, I check again, and I'm probably going to fold to a bet here. I don't think he's going to be double barreling that often, that light, but I'm going to make a decision based on my read on the turn. He snap checks behind, and at this point, I'm very confident I have the best hand. I think if he had a better hand, he would probably bet the turn, but he would at least think about it on the turn. So the pace of his check, the way he checked, I just feel like my hand is good here most of the time. The river comes a jack, and at this point, I don't really see a reason in betting. Like, is he really going to call here with king, queen, or even ace, king? Is it really going to call this river? Maybe, but probably not. I think my hand plays better as a check call, just in case I'm wrong on the turn and he had like
a 9 or pocket 8s or pocket 10s even that check behind. I think my hand just plays better as a check, and then I could pick off some bluffs if he bets. Now he comes out firing 5K and he bets very quickly. This is a weird bet here because he bets pretty big and he also is not repping that many hands. What hands check back the turn and then bet the river? Sure, he could have an overpair, but that wasn't my read on the turn. So if my read is right, he either has a jack, which hit the river, like ace jack, which of course makes sense, or he has nothing. When your opponents are typically repping a very narrow range of hands, meaning like a top pair rivered hand, otherwise they have air, it's a spot where most often you want to call because it's very hard to hit a jack on the river. Most of their range is going to be air, maybe something like ace 5, ace 3, 6, 7, a random bluff, king, queen, anything that's just betting to try and get me off what looks like a middle pair or a 9. Anyway, I think for sec and make the call. Unfortunately, he turns over ace jack and I lose this one. All right, third time's a charm. We have a straddle here. Greg makes it 800 in the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with ace 10 offsuit. Greg and I have been battling all day. We played a private game the day before where we were battling all night. And we are playing very aggressive against each other. So I make it 3,000 with ace 10. Folds around, Greg makes the call. We go heads up to the flop. Pot is about $6,000 and the flop comes down queen jack 4 with 2 hearts. I have ace 10 with a heart. And I decide to make a continuation bet here. My plan on this flop is to bet and then decide depending on what he does, but I'm really hoping he folds some under pairs like 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s. Those hands are all gonna fold this flop. If he calls with even like something like a jack, I have a decent amount of equity here. So I bet out 1,400, a small bet, just targeting those middle strength hands. Of course, with top pair, Greg has a very clear call. The turn comes down a 9 of hearts, and I pick up a flush draw and a straight draw. I think they got the stack sizes wrong here. I'm pretty sure Greg has about 12, 13,000 behind. So it's a really awkward stack size. The pot's 9K. If I bet like 6K and he jams, I'm kind of priced in to call. So I think I kind of have a decision where I either have to jam or check. And then if he jams, I'm in a really bad spot. I kind of have to fold my hand. So ultimately, I think about it for a second. I'm really targeting hands like a queen with no heart or a jack with no heart, maybe something like king jack or ace jack or even jack 10 with no heart. It's really in a tough spot facing a jam here. I don't love this turn because sometimes he's going to call me with like ace queen with a heart and I'm just in terrible shape, or maybe he turned a flush and I'm just in bad shape. But with a flush draw and a blocker and a lot of outs if I'm called with something like king queen, I think I have to stick it in here. I jam. Greg unfortunately turns 2 pair. He's not even loving it with that hand, which makes me feel a little bit better, right? If he's tanking with 2 pairs, so if he had 1 pair, I think he would probably let this go. Anyway, he calls. We run it twice. Here's what happens.
That's first run out for Greg, and second run out for Greg.
Rough. Alec's got the flush straight. Every draw in the world.
Wow. So that is rough
for Alec.
What a big hand for Greg, though.
That was an sick turn card.
Nice hand, Greg. All right, last hand to share. This one is wild. I'm stuck about 50K at this point, unfortunately, in a 25-50 game, sometimes with a 100 straddle, but not my favorite result. But I'm keeping my composure and I'm trying to battle back. So there's a $100 straddle here. Jimmy completes and calls 75. Greg makes it 300 in +1. And I'm running it back. I got 10s. Greg and I are battling. I make it 1,200. Let's go. Jimmy makes the call with ace jack, and Greg comes along as well for 900 more. We go 3 ways to the flop. Pot's about 4K. Flop comes down very good for me. 8, 6 deuce with 2 clubs. And now Greg leads into me. He had been making this move quite a few times before. I never really had anything, but this time with 10s, with the lead and a player behind me, I'm coming in for a raise. If he has me beat, we're playing a big pot, but I'm not gonna let him see the turn cheaply or let Jimmy draw behind me. So I make a raise to 4,500 just to isolate and force him to make a tough decision. He comes along for the call. At this point, I think if he had something better than my hand, he'd probably just stick it in, right? Like if he had queens or jacks, I think he's just gonna stick it in here. If he has a set, probably gonna stick it in with all those draws as well, targeting my overpairs. And so when he calls here, I think he's either on a draw or has a worse hand like an 8 or pocket 7s or a 6. Pot of 13,000, the turn comes down an offsuit queen, and Greg now checks.
At this point, I have a pretty tough decision. I could kind of go either way. I could check and then pick off bluffs on the river. I could bet small and then decide what to do if he jams. Or I could kind of just jam. I only have 16K, the pot is already 13K. If he has a draw, I want to deny equity and protect my hand. Ultimately, I decide to bet small for multiple reasons. One, I think it allows me to bluff a little bit easier. It makes me harder to play against when I'm betting small with different types of hands. And also, I could let him call with worse hands or maybe not believe me and shove it all in with a bluff. Maybe something like 10-9 or 3-4 or 4-5 or a flush draw. I also think it's very good to be able to bet these turns when you don't only have aces or kings or air. A lot of people check behind on these turns because the queen is a scare card, it's an overcard. But think about it, Greg bet the flop and called a raise. How can he have a queen in his hand? Yeah, he can have king, queen of clubs, but if he does, good game. You can't just let your opponents always see free cards against you. You have to protect, you have to go for value. I bet 3,400, Greg doesn't believe me, he sticks it in. I had already made up my mind on the turn when I was betting small that I was inducing a jam. I was gonna call a jam regardless, and if he has me beat, I tap the table and rebuy for the 4th time. Fortunately for me, I'm in great shape against this specific hand. We run it twice, and here's what happens.
They did run it twice. Let's see, the other card.
Looked like it.
There it is,
9.
okay, there's a 9, okay. So Alec is gonna be able to take them both down. So pretty big double up from him.
This hand was really the start of my recovery, and I battled back the rest of the night. The stream went 8 hours, and it was an amazing time. That's all for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Be sure to leave your comments below. Let me know how you would have played that pocket tens hand. Do you like my bet on the turn? What could I have done differently? Subscribe to this channel too. Awesome content is coming. Thank you all for your support. I'll see you over at ConsciousPoker.com. See you in the next one. Cheers.